I'd never cut a hole in the roof of a van before, and I found it quite hard to find information, the right information on how to do it on YouTube. There was a lot of videos about it, but I was particularly confused about the wooden frame that goes beneath the skylight. So we made this video, we put it into a little list so it's nice and easy to understand. Hopefully you can tell me if it's easy to understand or not. So firstly, we're cleaning that roof. That's fairly simple. Bucket, sponge, bit of fairy liquid, just give it a good scrub, and obviously give it a good dry afterwards. Then we used the frame of the skylight to cut out a piece of card, which was 400mm by 400mm, and made a tape frame and framed that out on the roof using masking tape. And this just showed us where we were going to be drilling. So we started masking tape the inside, and then you think, okay, great, but how are you going to see that on the top? Well, drilled a little hole here, which obviously went through to the roof on the top. You see the light coming through there. And then we used that drill hole as a frame to mask out the top of the roof. Is this making sense so far? I hope so. Drop a comment if you got any questions. Then, slightly contrary to the list I mentioned at the start, I started constructing the wooden frame. I've got some 2x1 wood here that we had in my mum's garage, very handy. And essentially just made this thick border, made sure the interior measurements fit just by dry fitting it really. Plunked in the plastic frame from the skylight here, and then I just drew around it, and basically everything outside of that is spare, we don't need it. In hindsight, I could have used a thinner wood so there'd be less waste, but I was just using what we had on hand. So what is the purpose of this wood bit? Basically, the metal on the roof of your van is a couple of mil thick, and you can't get the top of the skylight and the bottom sheet of the skylight to compress on each other around a couple of mil. So you need something in that gap for it to squeeze into. And that's what this wood does. It fills the gap between the top part of the skylight and the bottom part of the skylight, because the roof of your van is only a couple of mil thick, so it won't fill that gap. Does that make sense? That's the bit that took me forever to get my head around. So hopefully I've explained that well. It makes sense to me now in my head. Again, any questions, ask away. There are a couple of grooves that we needed to etch out to fit the bodywork of the van. This is a Transit Custom, as you will be able to tell from the title of this video. So yeah, we just made a few adjustments so it could fit in with the bodywork. There was just a sort of a beam at the front and back that we need to allow space for. That's really the hard bit. Then we do a couple more easy bits and we get to the terrifying bit. So next we just taped a bin bag to the bottom, because otherwise there's going to be metal shards everywhere as we drilled and sawed through. And then I did 2 pilot holes with quite a big drill bit. You want a drill bit big enough that's going to allow you to get your jigsaw blade into the hole. I drilled 1 pilot hole, and then from that pilot hole I went out 90 degrees one way and 90 degrees the other way. So I had a big L cut into the roof at this point. It's a case of linking up your pilot holes with jigsaw lines, keeping it straight as you can, and trying not to cry. And then eventually that bit of metal will pop out and you'll have a fat off hole in your roof. Once you've caught your breath after that, just give it a test fit. Just make sure you're on the right track. We actually got this pretty accurately. It didn't need much filing. There was just a couple of tight bits, which we filed down, peeled off the masking tape. It's actually quite a tough bit. And generally cleaned up the edges, gave it another scrub, and then we just put a little bit of rust paint on. Then on the Transit Custom, if you're putting your skylight where we've put it, there is a couple of grooves in the roof. We filled these with mastic tape, which is a type of caravan sealant putty. We just laid a strip of that in these grooves, which raised the level up to that of the rest of the van. And then we did another test fit. So now it was time to fit it. So bunked it in, made sure the roof was fairly flat to the bit. Amy's on the roof sealing the edges. Then once that was down, we're keeping pressure applied. It was good to have an extra pair of hands for this. Our roof is a little bit warped, which made it trickier. But if you've got a new van or just a tidy van, you're going to have an easier time than we did with this bit. Then it was time to slip on the wooden frame. And while Amy was applying pressure, I screwed that into the frame like so. and then ran some sealant around the edges. Then we got the rest of the screws in. We found that where the plastic lid opens, the rear of it actually blocks where you want to seal. So we popped off the lid so that we had full access to the edge where we needed it to seal, and sealed it like that because we found we weren't getting enough access to get good coverage with the sealant. So I would recommend taking off the clear plastic part so you can get good access and not have any leaks, which is the aim of the game. Anyway, I hope that made things a bit clearer and hopefully has helped you get your skylight in if that is a job that is on your list. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon with whatever we do next.